Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the Celtic Way morning briefing for Thursday, the 5th of October. My name is Ryan McGinlay. Today I'm delighted to be joined, it seems like always, by Tony Haggerty. Tony, how are you doing this morning?
Sleep deprived, but okay. I'm as philosophical as you can be after the events of last night, but it was a kick in the chops, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've got to be honest. After reflecting on it for a couple of hours and then waking up to it this morning, it does feel a bit sore. I was I think we were a bit numb to it last night just due to the shock when it happened. But having time to think about it, watching the highlights back, I watched the highlights back for the first time about 10 minutes ago. Still sickening, as I said last night outside Celtic Park, it seemed as if it took an age for those goals to go in, and it certainly felt that way in the highlights too. You can actually see for the second goal, unfortunately, Guendouzi, who put the cross in for Pedro, he doesn't even know if it's going in. It takes that long to creep into the far corner. So we'll talk about everything. We'll talk about the fallout for the game, and we'll probably have a wider discussion. I didn't think it was the time to do it last night, but I think there needs to be a wider discussion about Celtic in Europe. But before we get things started, as always, we appreciate everybody coming in, making themselves welcome in the morning briefing. Thank you to everyone for their comments so far. But we can't do this without you. We can't continue to make these free videos without your support and without your help. So if you please can, then subscribe to the Celtic Way website and you'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love at www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. There's instant analysis there from last night. There's the post-match Q&As from Brendan Rodgers detailing what he thought of the match. Everything that he said is on the website. There'll be more stuff going on today. There'll be more features going on today regarding last night's match. I think there's a piece from Alan Morrison coming later on today, so keep your eyes out for that. I'm sure there'll be plenty of reaction over the next few days to that game, because it really was a sickener, to be perfectly honest with you. So yeah, if you are interested, please, £4 for 4 months or £2.99 a month. We can't make these free videos, continue to make these free videos without your ongoing support on the website. So please visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe and get involved, basically. Yeah, that's the advert's over. Now it's time to talk about last night again. That felt like a bit of respite, to be honest. Yeah, defeat from the claws of victory is the phrase that I used last night outside Celtic Park. I certainly still feel like that was the case. From the highs of Palma's disallowed goal, where Celtic Park completely erupted in euphoria, to that 96-minute goal that signified Celtic's defeat through Pedro. A great header, but same old story once again for Celtic in the Champions League, isn't it, and in European competitions in general?
Yeah, they just can't seem to catch a break even when they do play. They did well for spells in that game, but didn't create an awful lot of chances, though. That was another thing as well, Ryan. But they dominated. That phrase, they dominated the football. Certainly dominated the football. Yeah, and you just go back to the manager banged on about quality players, didn't he? In the transfer, when you talk about that wider picture, which you're going to have to address. And we said it after the first game against Feyenoord, would a couple of quality players in certain positions have helped Celtic get points in that game? Yeah, they would have. Would it have helped last night? Yeah, it would have. And, you're sitting with no points after 2 games, in games where you felt there was moments, or certainly lots of time in both of those games where you thought both teams were there for the taking. Celtic are a pot 4 team. We get that, but both of those games so far, away to Feyenoord and Rotterdam and last night against Lazio, they were there to be won. Brian, I don't care what MD says. Like you're fed up with hard luck stories, aren't you? You can point the finger at you can point the finger at managers and boards, but Celtic know what they have to do. And signing up all your assets that you have is all very fine and well. That's great, but they need to stay at the club for the length of those contracts if you're going to do anything in Europe. And also, you need to start adding the quality players in that Brendan wants. If he starts to do it in January, there are a lot of people who think that's too late for this one. But you're going to have to show me evidence that you are treating the Champions League as seriously, because Celtic fans love the domestic dominance. But next year, the Champions League group stage changes. It's a different formatted competition altogether. You need to go into that, if not, well, hopefully you'll go into that having won the title. The title is of paramount importance this year to Celtic, but you need to go into that with a settled squad of players ready to compete. And I still think that Celtic were pretty competitive in both of those games, but they've still came up short. And that's a Lazio team that I think were happy with a point last night and could not believe that they ran away with all three by the end of it, the way they were celebrating. They went off their nuts, as they say, in this part of the world. And, just it's too easy to start pointing fingers of blame here, there and everywhere. Parts of the performance were good, but you still feel that with that quality that Brendan Rodgers maybe wanted in that summer transfer window, Celtic could have won both of those games in Rotterdam and Lazio. But again, same old story, same old mistakes, isn't it? And, we'll talk about a lot of stuff, but it's just that, you get that pit of the stomach feeling that you wake up today, isn't it? That, so near yet so far. But, 10 years is a long, long time, Ryan, to wait for a win at home in the Champions League. And all sorts of stats are now being produced about Brendan Rodgers being the worst ever manager for a manager that's taken 20 Champions League group stage games, all that kind of stuff. These are stuff that are going to be thrown in Celtic's face until they can start winning games at this level.
One thing I would say is that it takes a top manager to manage 20 times in the Champions League. So in order to get that record or that unwanted record, then you have to actually have made it that far. And he's made it that far with teams like with Celtic and Liverpool. I'm not sure if he was in the Champions League with Leicester. I seem to remember that. I think that was maybe Ranieri before his time. I know Ranieri was in the Champions League with Leicester, but he definitely had sort of Conference League experience and Europa League experience with Leicester. So, yeah, he's been in the Champions League a couple of seasons with Celtic, a couple of seasons with Liverpool too. So it takes a good manager to compete at that level. It's just a very, very unwanted record at the same time.
You talk about the fine margins. The fine margins always go against Celtic, don't they? They never seem to go for them. We're always talking about fine margins. Last year it was the chance conversion rate, the ratio, which was poor. So even when you do play well, you still can't eke out a result. Lazio were pretty average last night, eked out a result. Other teams you've seen in European competition can eke out results. Celtic just can't, regardless if they play well or if they play poorly. They just can't seem to get that happy medium in Europe. And I get that it's at that level, it is about fine margins, but they always seem to cop it, Celtic, even when it comes down to fine margins. So, what's the answer? That's the conundrum for Celtic, isn't it? And I'm not having a go at the manager. I'm just saying I read a story today where that stat was thrown about.
Yeah,
but Brendan Rodgers, I still
social
think
media as well.
Yeah, an elite level manager, and I didn't think there was much wrong with the setup last night or the tactics. You could maybe have said Palmer for Yang, but that's hindsight after the game that Yang had and then the kind of impact that Palmer made when he came on. I like to look at Bernardo as well when he came on.
Mm-hmm.
I know you love Hatate, but I'm at this moment thinking that maybe Hatate needs a further rest as well, and maybe have a look at what Bernardo can bring to the table domestically. It's one for debate, isn't it? Because I felt Hatate just wasn't at it last night, and a major reason why it kind of, Celtic couldn't get to grips with the midfield at times. Matt O'Reilly did what Matt O'Reilly does, produced an exquisite pass for Kyogo's goal, and
it was an exquisite pass.
That's Kyogo's one and only sight of goal, Ryan, and he scores. He did it once in the game. I mean, we spoke about this. I hate him out there 40, 50 yards from goal. Play in the shoulder, play that way, and play to your strengths.
Did you notice last night that Rio Hatate was playing really, really wide as well in certain points of the game?
Yeah.
He just wasn't in the middle. I don't know if that was down to him being tired in the middle, that he was going out wide for a breather, or if he was positioned in that that space. It was almost like a sort of not comparing the two. I'm just meaning positionally. You know how Jude Bellingham sometimes plays in the left wing for Real Madrid. It's kind of the same for Rio Hatate. I don't know why he was out in that position. You know, Rio Hatate probably wishes he was Jude Bellingham at this moment in time. But yeah, it was a very weird position for Rio Hatate to be in the game, and the same for Kyogo. But it showed you that, you know, Kyogo's got to. He's having to come deep to be involved in the game. The players have got to be feeding him and giving him chances, because, you know, he had his one chance and he got his one goal in the game. He's prolific. He had that other slight chance where he was trying to do like a sort of acrobatic finish. It was the only way he could get something on the ball, and it was an easy save for the goalkeeper. But apart from that, it was pretty quiet, and he had to come deep. Maybe that's why Hatate was going wide, because Kyogo was coming in deep and he didn't want to overload the midfield. But you just want players to stay in their natural positions.
And also as well, Hatate, Maeda's got a chance, he's bursting through, takes a terrible first touch, and you know, and you're just thinking, that's all about.
That's Maeda.
Yeah, but it's all about composure at that level, isn't it? And being calm and collected and knowing what you're doing. And you know that's another fine margin, because that's for 2-0, isn't it? I believe at the time.
Yeah,
and he's made the. I mean, he's intelligent enough to make the run, and the passes came through. And you say to yourself, just steady yourself. Don't get overexcited. You know, I get that you know, you sit here as a top 4 team and you're looking at those 2 games and you're thinking, Celtic could have won both of them. And it's the most frustrating thing in the world, because it's ad nauseam. We sit here every year and say, we'll learn from mistakes, we'll get better, we'll progress. So in order to progress, we need to keep a nucleus and squad of players for this manager that we have just now, and build something, you know, and build for hopefully going back in again next year when the competition's revamped. There's 4 games to go in this section, Ryan, and lots of people are predicting doom and gloom that Celtic won't get any points. From the evidence I saw last night, they can certainly beat Feyenoord at home. That's the last game. Obviously, they've got the double dunter coming up against Atletico Madrid, and you take what you can get against those teams. You know, Stephen Donoghue coming in and saying, we're not good enough, Tony. It maybe pains a lot of Celtic supporters to admit that, but they're not good enough at Champions League level at this minute in time. I think that's a fair comment.
I think it's a mental thing. I'll be perfectly honest. I think it's a mental
block run away from
in the
that.
team.
Yeah, there must be. You can't run away from that.
Because I mean, we've seen other teams.
Level.
We've seen other teams go on runs in Europe. You know, and you watch that with a bit of envy. It's not better players that these teams have, but they seem to have the streetwise mentality in Europe to grind out results. I'm not going to mention any names, but there are teams that are just more streetwise than Celtic. They just would not concede that goal that Celtic did last night.
Yeah.
It was really disappointing. You know, I did see a comment. I'm just going to bring it up. It was from AJC Tech that said Lazio did commit 7 players right up our half in the last minute. Their goal was no fluke. They knew we had a long history of giving up heartbreak goals late in games. They did their research. Do you know, I think those 7 men up the park must have been going twice as fast when Cameron Carter-Vickers was coming out with the ball, because they knew that he could have been dispossessed. You don't need to give these teams any opportunity to try and get a way back into the game. You know, as you were saying, Lazio were quite happy to take a point from that game. It was Celtic that were pushing up the park in the last couple of minutes, and then, you know, the last minute or so they concede a goal out of nowhere. You know, it comes from absolutely nothing. There was never any real sustained pressure from Lazio throughout the game. There was never any point where it felt like Celtic were hanging on or anything. If anything, it was the other way about. Celtic had their spells in the game where they were really putting the pressure on the Italian side. Not really a lot in the way of shots or anything, but in terms of possession, you know, Celtic had 55% possession against what you would say, at least on paper, is a really good Italian team. I'm not sure if they're an outstanding team, but they must have more about them if they finished second in Serie A last season. It's very much a sore one just now. It was a sore one last night, and looking back on it, looking on the highlights, it was a sore one this morning as well. But it's one of those ones that Celtic have to dust themselves down and try and get something against Atletico Madrid. The problem is, even though they aren't the pot one team, it feels like Atletico Madrid are the pot one team just due to the players that they've got in their possession.
Yeah, I'm going to flick this comment up because I'm unsure what he means, Martin. Maybe you can enlighten me. Take your tinted glasses off, Tony. I'm at a loss to understand that. If you can let me know what you mean by that, I'll gladly respond to it. I'm just giving my honest thoughts on what I thought happened last night. Don't necessarily have to agree, but I'll defend your right to say what I say, and I'll defend your right to say what you say as well. But cryptic comments like that, I'm pretty bamboozled by that, because I think we've been pretty honest in our assessment. Ryan, I don't think we've been particularly scathing.
I mean, you said that Celtic weren't good enough in the Champions League. I don't know how more honest you can get in that assessment of the game. Yes, in terms of player by player, matching up player by player, there will be a gap between the two teams just due to the league that they play in, due to the finances that they have in the markets that they can shop in. I'm not going to make that excuse, but it is there. What Celtic have to do, they have to bridge that gap in other areas.
Marty, I said that Celtic aren't good enough. Did I not say that?
You did. You said it for the Champions League. Yeah, I do agree. There are some teams where Celtic maybe, and I just made that point about a minute ago, but they can't match up to the same players, so they've got to match up in other ways. They've got to put those extra yards in, they've got to put the hard yards in, got to capitalise on mistakes. That goal that Celtic conceded late on last night is the sort of goal that I would want Celtic to be scoring late on. A strong team making a really, really bad error in the last minute of the game, and your team capitalising on that. But unfortunately, it was Celtic. I made a point last night that it feels as if Celtic scored the most well-worked goals, the most outstanding goals, and yet we've made this point in weeks before as well. But yet the European teams that Celtic play against, they always seem to get gifts from Celtic. That first goal, watching it back, it's schoolboy stuff in the box for a corner. Nat Phillips shouldn't be getting beaten there, in my opinion. He's a big lad, and he likes to header more than he passes, I would say. So he should be winning that first header. Once he loses that first header, then it's anyone's game. It goes to Vicino, and it's a good header by him, but very, very disappointing.
It's a bread and butter goal again, isn't it? How many times have you watched Celtic concede bread and butter goals from set pieces like corners and free kicks into the box with, I don't even think they're picking anybody out. They're just kind of floated in there to an area, and Celtic are found wanting, big defenders attack that, don't they? Strong defenders go and attack that ball in the air. And if they lose the first header, they're certainly alive for the second phase of it. And it was a goal in slow motion, wasn't it? And people were saying, the goalkeeper could have did better. I'm not so sure. He tried, but I don't think you're blaming the goalkeeper there for that one.
I think he's a very, very easy target, and I can be guilty of that as well. But he is the first person you look at, but I think it's the header.
Yeah, I'm looking at my central defenders to go and win that. You know what? I say it all the time. Defenders are defenders for a reason. See when the ball's in the air, go and attack it. See when it's on the deck, clear it. Carter Vickers could have put his foot through that easily. It's you're in injury time. You just don't take any unnecessary risks. And when you switch off, that's when teams at this level switch on. And Celtic were guilty of switching off. Game management, the manager called it. I totally agree with him. And I totally agree with the fact that you can't fault the players' attitude and effort and commitment and application. Yep, I'm happy with all that. I'm just saying, you look at those two games, and you've got a feeling, they deserve more, but they got nothing from two games. So, did they deserve more? You sort of try and be a bit more analytical, and you can criticise for criticism's sake, but, Celtic competed in both of those games for spells, but they never get that, I say, the benefit of those fine margins. Why do they always lose? Why can he not just eke out something or fluke something like other teams seem to be able to do at this level? And That's what's galling, that's what's annoying. And you kind of turn around and you say, yep, it's hard to admit it, but they're maybe simply not good enough for this level at this moment in time. Give the manager time to he's re-signed all the assets that we wanted to re-sign. So hopefully, come January, they can bring in more players and maybe start building towards winning the title and going back in the new revamped Champions League. But as I say, there's still 4 games to go in the section, and I want Celtic to be as fiercely competitive as possible. And I don't want plaudits for certain things and certain stuff that we did. I just want points now. I want them to put points on the board for themselves more than anything, to show that they can do it. And it's just, I guess it's a bit galling, and it kind of, it does it. You can't hide from the fact that it hurts as well. You woke up this morning and you're just sick, because that was a sickener last night. And the least they should have taken was a point, but to take nothing was just it's just typical. It's kind of microcosmic of Celtic in Europe, isn't it? And every time you think they're going to turn the corner, something's going to happen, you get excited. It's the hope that kills you, as they say. I guess it did again last night. But I just people. Here's one, Patrick McLaughlin. Fed up with the competitive narrative. Yeah, exactly. But so what do, Patrick? Do you just go on assault and slate the team? There were some good things last night about Celtic's performance. Some positives, and that's what you cling on to in the hope that you can build on that and maybe get something from the group.
Yeah, I've got to be honest. I think at this point, with the level that Celtic are at, I think they're one of the. I don't know about a high-end Europa League side, but they're a side that should be in like the knockouts of the Europa League. I think you're starting to see the reason why maybe Celtic struggle in the Champions League. It just might not be that, and they've got to get used to this. They've got to get used to this level, especially if they're finishing first in the league. The vast majority of seasons, they're going to make that straight entrance into the Champions League. So with more games, you're just hoping that they can acclimatise to that level. But at the moment, I would just say I reckon that Celtic could do a job in the Europa League. I reckon they could go on a run in that competition. But unfortunately, it's very difficult, especially when you've got 3 other teams in the group. Where for a couple of them, the Europa League isn't a disaster either. So they'll be all out to go for that as well. They'll be looking at the 3 teams that Celtic have got in their group will be looking at the Europa League and saying, right, if we don't get into the last 16 in the Champions League, we can go and win that competition in Europa League. So it's unfortunately it's just where Celtic are at the moment. It's whether or not the board want to push the boat out and bring in that quality. We were talking about. And I've been up and down with it and saying that maybe those 10-15 million pound assets are there. It would have been helpful if we had a couple of more of those first team ready players in there to guide the team to a result last night. As much as it's good to bring on, these talents, but Palma's a talent. Paulo Bernardo's a talent. You need these first team ready players that are going to get you through the hard part of the game. The ending of the game, because it doesn't matter what you do. It does to an extent matter what you do for the 89 minutes. That stoppage time that added 6 minutes, you've got to stay focused on both ends. I know Celtic were pushing for a winner, but they can't leave the back open, and they did, unfortunately, and Lazio capitalised. What do you think? Do you think that Celtic are a Europa League club functioning in the Champions League, or do you think it's more than that?
I think everybody kind of feels that way, don't they? They go in with hope and aspiration. I always go in with hope and aspiration with Celtic in the Champions League, because you know what they're capable of. But and they just seem to come up short, don't they? And we've spoken about it, the summer transfer window, and we know the kind of players that we'd like to bring to the club. The manager knows the kind of players we'd like to bring to the club, but it's a hard ask. It's a hard sell to bring that top quality player to the Scottish League. Because you are selling it on 6 games in the Champions League. Maybe different next season. You can sell it on 8 to 10 games depending on what happens. So that's quite a showcase for people, and it might be a bigger carrot to dangle in front of those players in the summer. But you have to at times speculate to accumulate, don't you, Ryan? And I think the summer window was one of those times when Celtic could have speculated to accumulate, because they had the money in for certain players. And I know they've used money to tie up their assets. I get all that, and everything costs money, but I just think they're shorn of one or two players in certain areas, and it showed last night. I think those deficiencies were exposed last night. We all saw it for what it was, and yeah, I think you are looking at the fact that Celtic, possibly a high-end Europa League team competing in the Champions League, but at this moment in time, they're actually struggling to make the Europa League. And they need to turn that around pretty quickly. And, the double-header against Atletico Madrid is now pivotal. And, the doom and gloom merchants are saying they're not going to take any points from this group. I refuse to believe that, because I think they're better than no points. But if they do take no points, then so be it. What can you do? It'll not be through the lack of the manager's application, effort, commitment, and trying, but they just have to accept it at this level. There's deficiencies there, and we all see it last night. The concession of teams don't have to work hard to score against Celtic, do they?
No.
You said yourself, Celtic have to score almost a perfect goal against opposition teams, and they executed a perfect goal last night, got off to a great start, were playing really well. But that's the one and only time, well, Maeda went through, I guess, as well, but sporadically cut them open.
It's that Maeda chance is just, I turned around to my dad at the game and said, if that was Jota, that's a goal. It's a big moment in the game. At that level.
Yeah, it's concentration, quality, call it what you like. Being calm in the moment. You live for those moments. You have to execute them perfectly at that level. And, if you don't, that's what happens to you. It's galling. Yep, it angers you. It frustrates the living daylights out of you. But that's just the way it is. And last night was a real sickener. It's the worst I think the Celtic fans have felt in a long time, because they felt absolutely mugged, didn't they? The teams have come to Celtic Park and played you off the park and won superbly well, and you just applaud it and say, well, they're a far better team. On the basis of evidence last night, I know they finished runners-up in the Serie A last season. Lazio weren't the better team last night, but they did what was required, didn't they? They eked out a result, and you have to be, I think...
That's what good teams do. That's what good teams do.
Yeah, you need to be more streetwise, more cute, more clever, don't you, at times? And I just think Celtic lack that at times. Even I think someone touched upon last night, and we were talking about it, physicality as well. The hallmark of Martin O'Neill's teams in Europe was the physicality, wasn't it? There's no getting away from that. You talk about Fortress Parkhead and all that kind of stuff. There was a physical presence about Celtic. They had some wonderful footballers, gifted footballers, but boy, they could mix it. You just don't see that in this team, do you? They've got some talented and gifted footballers, but when it comes to physicality, sometimes you think, is that lacking? I think so, but they weren't out muscled last night. No, they were just mugged at the end, and but there's a whole myriad of factors there. The manager said game management too. I can only agree with that. You're one each. You think to yourself, well, a point's not the worst. Yep, players need to, and yeah, you need to be streetwise. Put your foot through that. You just don't take any chances. And another commenter said, it's a 96th minute, Ryan, and Lazio flood 7 players forward and score the winning goal. An Italian team flooding 7 players forward. When have you ever seen that in the likes of your puff? But again, switched on when Celtic switched off for that, momentary lapse in concentration, and it's cost you dear, and it's going to come back to haunt them in the group. Going to look upon that as a big moment in the group. There's no escaping it, and there was lots. There was a few things to be really positive about last night and enthused about, and they thought they'd won it with Palmer's strike at goal, which was an excellent dig. I was really pleased the way he put that in, and he showed that he's maybe got a lot to offer moving forward. But ultimately, it was ruled out, and you go from there Go from the ultimate high to rock bottom in the space of 10 minutes.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. I was just having a look at the fixtures there in terms of the Champions League. I didn't realise that it was Atletico Madrid at home rather than away first. It will be a step up in team. Yes, absolutely. I wouldn't say anything different. But if Celtic play like that and put that performance together, or most of the elements of that performance, then they can give any team a game. It's still a couple of games away. It's about 3 or 4 games away before they play Atletico Madrid. But now, if that game yesterday was a must win, that needs to be a win this time. And it's not a great position that you put yourself in 3 games into the group when you need a win in order to save your chances. But
that becomes a win or bust, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Let's be honest. For any hopes in the group, in terms of your qualification hopes or making it through to the Europa League knockout phase, it's a win or bust. 3 games into the group, and sadly that's the way it has to be looked upon. Can Celtic raise it against Atletico Madrid? And the manager said they'd regroup and plan and see what they can do better, and they go again. Yeah, going to have to. That's the bottom line. They're going to have to. So it's become pivotal now that not only I think they have to win that game somehow. Maybe that's the one they get the rub of the green iron and they eke out something, get lucky or whatever.
Talk about streetwise.
Something has to give in that game. Celtic have to come out on the top of Atletico. Yeah, correct.
If you're talking about streetwise, then you're probably coming up against the most streetwise manager there is in Simeone, unfortunately. I'm not being deluded. I'm just saying that Celtic do need a win in that game. And I'm saying if they put in that performance, then they give themselves a better chance. I'm not expecting them to win against Atletico Madrid, but there's no point in going into a game expecting to get beat either. I don't see I don't see any positives in going into a game and thinking, "Oh, we're automatically going to get beat." Because if that's the case, then what's the point in turning up? As disappointed as we can be by last night's result, there were positives in the game. Unfortunately, they didn't go for the full 96 minutes, and that's the reason why they were punished. But I just think if they can put that performance together against Atletico Madrid, then they give themselves a better chance. Don't expect them to win the game, but it gives them a better chance. And you never know how the cards are going to fall on a particular night. Only need to look at the Barcelona results, the results in the past, even the Lazio ones in the Europa League in the past. These results can happen. It's just Celtic. A lot of things need to go right for Celtic, and some things need to go wrong for Atletico Madrid. But they're not out of the question. There's a reason why Celtic are in the Champions League.
Yeah, I think you talk there. I think at this moment in time for Celtic to get a result in the Champions League, i.e. a win, everything needs to go right for Celtic. You talk about fine margins. Everything needs to go right for Celtic in order to get a win in the Champions League. Because if one thing doesn't go right, you just seem to be getting punished. And a lot of it is the architects of their own downfall. So they need to look a bit more introspectively at that as well. Bit of navel gazing, dealing with corners, dealing with their the way they see out games, game management, as the manager says. So everything needs to go right for Celtic at this moment in time in order to get a result. And obviously, the opposition things need to go wrong for them. So, I don't rule out beating Atletico. I'm the eternal optimist, the eternal dreamer. You know me, glass always half full. Ryan, you know what I mean? Tinted glasses or not, it doesn't matter. And I'll always say that Celtic will give anybody a game at home in Europe, and especially in the Champions League. But at this moment in time, Celtic need everything to go right in order to shatter that 10-year wait for a home Champions League win. And the more you say it, the more it depresses you, doesn't it? The more, Callum McDougall, I think this is a fair point. Need referees to get things right as well. I don't shy away from that. You've had a chance to see that incident again, Ryan, with on your favourite player Hatate. It's a straight red card, and VAR and the referee never even had a look at it. I think that's a scandalous decision. And again, we spoke about, what did I say in the morning of the briefing? The Italians have got the dark arts down to an art form, and they just seem to get away with it more often than any other teams in Europe. And, a strong referee has a look at that, doesn't he? Or he says to VAR, should I be having a look at that?
Well, the thing is, what I was saying last night is that VAR would have had a look at that and then decided that it's not sufficient enough to intervene in the game, which is even more of a damning indictment, I would say.
Correct. Yeah, of
because
the system.
you do that outside of a football game. It's assault. So I don't see what's the difference on the park. He knows what he's doing.
I go back to John Hartson. John Hartson's initial reaction was, that's a punch. Because he did that. It's a flailing arm, elbow, but he just catch him with, I think, that bit, round about that bit of the hand, wrist, whatever you want to call it. And it's a sore one because you saw his eye. His eye was bloodshot and it's half closed. So he's took, as they call in Glasgow parlance, a dullion, hasn't he? You know what I mean?
Yeah, there was a comment I wanted to bring up, and I do agree with it to an extent. Yeah, it's from Jason. He said less of the Italian teams don't attack in last minute; they're defensive. I would say that is a fair point because there are teams like Lazio, Juventus in the past as well that are quite attacking teams. Not every team is a defensive team, but in the past we have seen teams like Lazio come in, set up shop. They'll get an equaliser through a mistake by Celtic in the corner. Not winning the first corner, but it's just streetwise. At the end of the day, these Italian teams are streetwise.
I was talking about the context of the game.
Yeah,
because they never flooded men forward like that the whole game. I'm talking about they switched off and seized their opportunity. I'm talking about the context of the game in terms of they flooded 7 men forward, and it was it's not like Italian teams to do that because they were happy with the point, but they seized that opportunity. So that's what I meant in the context of the game. I wasn't stereotyping Italian teams because they can be negative, but in the past we've seen some very impressive Italian teams. But in the context of the game, Lazio were quite happy with the point.
Yeah, they were.
And because they showed no real ambition in the second half at all in order to get forward. And
I can't really think of many chances they had apart from that.
Joe Hart never had a save, so that's what I meant in terms of the context of the game. So to flood 7 men forward, they seized that opportunity to grab the winner, and boy did they capitalise and seize on it. They sniffed blood right at the death because they were switched on. And that's the streetwise things. Yeah, exactly, Ronnie. That's what I'm talking about.
You've got to say Celtic did the same 4 years ago with Encham.
Yeah, in the context of football matches, you have to, seize your moments and switch on when you think opposition might be switching off. We banged on about it last night. Yeah, they competed, but they didn't compete for the whole 96 minutes, did they? So
no, in the game, that's why the thing. You're going to get longer games now due to the added time. That was down to, unfortunately, that added time was down to Palmer's goal getting checked by VAR. That's the reason. These things have swings and roundabouts, unfortunately. But thanks very much for the comment. Anyway, Jason, we really do appreciate that, and we do because there are different teams. Teams have different styles. Italian football, there is a lot more goals now in Italian football than there was previously. It's just an evolution in the game. But you do come up. It does seem as if Celtic do come up against these teams quite a bit. That pick their moments, that know when to strike, and Celtic get a taste of the rolling medicine that they inflicted upon Lazio 4 years ago.
It's a bit like Celtic domestically, isn't it? Celtic kind of go to the end and switch on and take advantage of teams like that in their own domestic league. So there's a total role reversal last night. Thank you, David. Really appreciate that. Total role reversal last night and what happened in the domestic scene on Saturday. So I spoke about it last night. The karma for all the other teams or all the other opposition fans that don't support Celtic and maybe had a laugh at that. That's what football's about. It's all about rivalry and good-natured banter and humour. And if that's the case, then you're going to have to take your dumps and your medicine on that. But we try and dissect this as honestly and as passionately as we can, through hurt, through gritted teeth, through tears, through whatever. But we're not saying we're right, but we're giving our opinion on it on this platform. But we also give other people their opinion on it as well. Brian Roberts, Tony, you called it right. Thank you, Brian. Checks in the post, as they say. But we encourage other views. We'll read them out. We try and be as fair to everybody as possible because we know everybody wants their say. Michael Duffin, as we always do, guys, your opinion. Yeah, correct. And,
that's the beauty of this. Everybody's got a different opinion. If everybody had the same opinion, it'd be very, very boring, and we'd be repeating the same thing over and over again. Some discourse is always good in these discussions.
And whatever happened last night, it's always going to be emotive, isn't it?
Yeah,
because you're angry.
Champions League has more emotive as well. I would say with the fans as well, just due to the situation that you find yourselves in.
You're angry, you're frustrated, and it is what it is. But you move on. There's always the next game, isn't there, to remedy that and pick yourself up. And Michael Duffin, exactly, Ryan and Tony, yeah. And thank you, Ronnie Blythe, coming in again. Love your chat, guys. It's honest, and we all want the same thing. We do all want the same thing. We all want our team to be successful. So, it hurts when they're not successful in Europe, and it hurts when you have to be truthful with yourself and admit that they're just maybe not good enough for this level. And there's no shame in that. But you just wish that sometimes the chips would fall on luck on Celtic side with a bit of luck. And I include officialdom in that. I don't particularly like having a pop at referees because I think it smacks of sour grapes. But last night, even the manager, and he doesn't make a habit of having a go at referees, but he couched it by saying there was some strange decisions. So Brendan Rodgers is saying that, then his flick has been switched and upped by the Hatate incident. There was a couple of high boots, one in Matt O'Reilly's face and one Cameron Carter-Vickers, I think, that went unpunished too. So there's various decisions that coulda, woulda, shoulda. Still, you wake up this morning, you're bottom of the group after 2 games with no points and feeling that you could have got a hell of a lot more, just not just a bit more, a hell of a lot more. So you just have to dust yourself off and, get up and go again. I mean, that's all you can do. And
that's all they can do.
Yeah, and it's, you try and paint a gloss on it, and a more positive gloss, but still there's no escaping that you've lost your first 2 matches in the Champions League Group E and you're behind the 8 ball, but it is what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. I think with all the coverage that we've done on this game, I think we'll leave it there because I know you'll be busy with other things, Tony. I was going to get on to talk about Brendan Rodgers' comments, but you could maybe even get into them tomorrow or whatever.
Sure.
There's always plenty to talk about. I'm sure Brendan Rodgers will be speaking to the media either today or tomorrow regarding things. Probably tomorrow. When you think about the days in which they're all spread out. So, thank you everybody once again for joining us in the comment section. It's been a really colourful comment section, but we wouldn't have it any other way. Colourful but green and white. Which is really good. Yeah,
feisty, right?
I wouldn't want it any other way. It's got to be colourful. It's got to be emotive. These results do bring out emotions in people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we encourage that, guys. It's not something we shy away from, and we'll flick your comments up if you're having a go at us. We don't mind that. I think that's healthy. We don't always have to get on and agree, but as long as it's done with some reasoning behind it, and it's not just personal and criticism of guys per se. So yeah, but we love it. We love the community we've built. We've built this up from nothing, and we like sharing the highs and the lows of following Celtic with you. It's what it's all about. And for every high, there's a low, isn't there? And last night was a bit of a low, so you have to roll with the punches, as they say. None more so than Rio Hatate. Still annoyed at that.
He's been in the walls recently, Rio Hatate. Hopefully he won't get that on Saturday if he does play. You're just hoping that Celtic can sort of bounce back and inflict revenge on Kilmarnock, they put Celtic out of the League Cup earlier on in the season, so a chance for revenge, at least in league terms. Thank you to everybody that's joined us in the comment section. Once again, can I please invite everybody to have a look at the bottom of the screen? It's just running along the bottom of the screen just now. Please subscribe to the Celtic Way website. You'll be supporting top quality football journalism covering the club you love. As we've said at the start and in every single videos, we cannot continue to do these live videos, both post-match, pre-match, and the the morning briefings and the pre-recorded videos when they come out. We cannot do these free videos without your subscriptions to the website. It's £4 for 4 months just now, or £2.99 at a flat rate a month, whatever one suits your fancy, basically. Depending on what your situation is, obviously. If you are interested, then please visit www.celticway.co.uk/subscribe. Analytical pieces, scouting pieces, instant analysis, analytical data pieces, stats bomb, Y Scout, instant analysis. I think I've already said instant analysis before. Big interviews. Anything that you could possibly look for and wish for with regards to Celtic, it's all on the Celtic Way website, so please visit the website. We've also got a dedicated app on the Google Play Store and the App Store, so if you are interested, please just type in Celtic Way. It's optimised for mobile devices on both Apple and Android and Google platforms, so if you are interested, please give that a download, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. The growth we've had over the past month or so has been great. We want to keep that going, so it's all the S's at the moment. Subscribe.
Speaking of the YouTube channel, Ryan, in true self-deprecatory style, to show that I don't take myself that serious, I got the biggest backhanded compliment last night on the YouTube comments. Some guy described me as the Rabsy Nisbet guy. I mean, his compliments go, that's up there, isn't it? You know what I mean? It's just like, wow. I thought, thanks very much. I can only aspire to be as famous as Rabsy Nisbet, can't you, Ryan? There you go. Don't know what it was alluding to, but hey, the Rabsy Nisbet guy, I was just like, thank you very much. It's very kind.
Yeah, absolutely.
There you go. So, but yeah, it's it's a weird and wonderful world covering Celtic, isn't it? And spectacular at times. Sometimes it's, I've always said your moods are intrinsically linked with the fortunes of this football club. So, and for those asking where I am, I'm actually in the office today. And that's the backdrop behind me in the office in the reception. People come and go and walk about. So if you've heard any background noise, I'll apologise for that. But there you go. It's a nice place, isn't it, Ryan? You've been here before.
Yeah, it's very, very nice.
Nice office. So
I know you're going to be busy for the rest of today. So I really do appreciate your your contribution.
Clap Kent guy. I'm everything to all men. Basically anyone with glasses. It's just your old dad here is got a looky likey. So, but nah, not a problem, Ryan. Pleasure to join you as always. Guys, have a great day if you can. It's always result dependent, isn't it? We bit down in the dumps.
Liquor wins, and we go. Celtic will go again on Saturday. That's something to sort of look on. We'll dissect the game in more detail in articles online, but in terms of the game, in terms of these podcasts, we've just got to look forward to the Kilmarnock game Saturday at 3:00. Can't beat a Saturday at 3:00 kickoff. Thank you to everybody once again for getting involved in the comments, for your subscriptions, whether that be on the website or the YouTube. Really do appreciate it. We'll be back at the same time tomorrow to discuss all things Celtic, but until then, have a really good day. Cheers, guys.